Good evening and welcome to the Radical Race Series live for round 11 from Bathhurst in Australia. I am James Parfitt. I'm going to be joined in the booth by Ewan O'Leary very shortly. But Bathhurst itself, two configurations since its conception in 1938. The most recent configuration opening in 1987. 6.213 kilometres and 3.86 miles. Turns 23 and a current track lap record of 1:59.210 set by Chris Myers in the Audi R8 LMS GT3 in 2018. Currently hosts the Supercars, the Intercontinental GT Challenge, Bathurst Motor Festival, and the GT World Challenge in Australia, along others as well. Hope everybody is well. John McCutchinson, good evening to you. Hope you're having a fabulous evening as well. Don't forget, guys, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bells for all your notification needs of when we go live. Currently, two broadcasts running this evening. We've got the Radical Race Series here tonight, and we've got the TSRC from Mazzano GT3 on ACC, which is currently in the wet. So if you want to watch some wet race action, go over to the TSRC and you will see it there as well. But I think it's time to bring Ewan into the booth. Good evening, Ewan. How are you, buddy?
Good evening, doing very well once again. Looking forward to another round of Radical Race Series action, and we're closing in now, of course, on the very end of the season. Only 2 rounds to go in this one now, so we better enjoy it while it's here. And we've got 2 great circuits to enjoy as well. Bathurst particularly my favourite of the remaining 2. It's a perfect mix between technical challenge for the drivers and also actual overtaking opportunities, which the Nordschleife does lack here or there.
Yeah, it certainly does. And we have got a format change for you this evening. It's been extended to 20 laps tonight, which will include 1 pit stop. The drivers will start 43% fuel, and the pit window will be between lap 7 and lap 13. Now, what is that going to bring to the race itself? Now, Bathurst is tricky anyway, right? We know that. Once you start getting up into the Munton section of the quarry, the cut-in through the dipper and down into Forest Elbow, not only have you got that section to worry about, you've also got a pit stop to try and put in place as well. And that's going to be a different challenge altogether for these drivers.
Yeah, it is. It's something that we've not seen so far this season. I don't remember seeing it in any previous races, actually, although I'm sure it has happened at some point. It is a new challenge, and I just wonder how different it's going to really make this race, because normally it's all about, going as fast as possible from A to B, really. And there's not too much strategy to it, but will there be a little bit as a result of this pit stop window? I still think it's going to be all out from start to finish, because there's not a lot of time, really. To figure out what quite what's going on and really strategise your way to the front. But so I think we are going to see some very similar racing to what we normally see in these races. But you never know, we may see something slightly different. And the good thing is, with only 2 rounds to go, is that these drivers haven't really got that long to figure out what the best strategy is to go through with this. And so normally when people start to figure that out, everyone does the same thing, and we don't want to see that because that's slightly boring. We'll see if we keep this for the final 2 rounds. We'll see a little bit of variation between the drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this week, you've been off doing some mathematics for us, Ewan. And now, what's the current state of affairs in the championship? Because at the moment, this is what we've got, haven't we, at the moment?
Yes, so we have Simon Edwards, according to our calculations, on 266, and this is taken from our rating, by the way, so I feel more confident. Simon Edwards 266 points, Mike Poussin 231, Luke Maxwell 229. Now that's all very close, and that's all well and good. Only 37 points separating the top 3 at this end of the season is very impressive, and it's 40 points for a win. So you might be thinking, well, we're absolutely quids in here. We're going to get a fantastic championship finale. I've been working out the drop weeks for Simon Edwards. At the moment, he's dropping 50 points because of previous races. He did have a shaky start to the season here or there. 2 of his drop rounds were in the first 5 races, or in the first 5 races, so he did have a shaky start. But now he's up to speed, and so even if Mike Boosson was to score a maximum of 80 points in the final 2 races, Simon Edwards would still get 50 added to his score no matter what happens in these final 2 rounds. And those 30 points that Boosson would gain would not be enough to overhaul Simon Edwards, as you can see there. He could reduce the margin to as little as 5 points in these final rounds, could Mike Boosson, but it still won't be enough. So I believe, anyway, that Simon Edwards will be crowned champion no matter what happens over these final 2 weeks.
Yeah, so that's what we've got, guys, okay? So that's the situation that we've got currently with Ewan spending a week doing maths. And, as we all know, maths is complicated enough without having to try and sit in the background working out drop weeks and everything else. But Ewan's managed it, and that's where we're at. And I'm going to take the fact that if Ewan says Simon Edwards can't be caught, I'm going to go with that and turn around and say that's right. Now, all we've got to do, Ewan, is hopefully it will come out correct.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I remember last season that my calculations were correct, and we got things wrong ever so slightly on the way to Luke Maxwell's first title in this series. But I'm a bit more confident on this occasion. More maths has gone into this, and so I've got a small spreadsheet and everything. It's not too much work. It doesn't take too long either. Slightly over egging it, but yeah, it's been worked out, and Simon Edwards, I think, is going to be crowned champion at the end. Because at the end of the day, other than his 3 drop rounds, he has been on the podium in the other 7 races this season. It's not exactly a surprise to see him up there right now and on the top of the standings.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we've, got to kind of look forward to is crowning Simon Edwards champion, because I think overall, he's done an absolute stellar job. And to be honest, I don't think we're going to be too far off where the scores are at the moment. I think once it's get this week out of the way and then calculate the next week, I think we should be good, to be fair, as we go into Nords, of course, finishing off at the Nordschleife circuit. Bathhurst this week, right? Now, what are we thinking we're going to get here? Because we've got 17 cars on track. So we haven't got kind of a small field, but we haven't got, a 20-car field that we would hope for. But we've still got 17 cars rushing towards that mountain section, starting from Griffin's Bend in turn 2. There's a lot that could go wrong, and I've seen it this week in officials, and I've seen it in practice sessions where people are blocking the mountain section off with their radical. Are we hoping that we don't get that this evening? Because that could cause a bit of a problem, that part of the circuit.
Yeah, we're certainly hoping that things are going to stay clean early on, because very easily all of these drivers could get wiped out in a big incident early on, and if that happens, we could well be in for a boring race if everybody gets wiped out. So, and we don't really want to see that. We want to see everybody get through the first few laps cleanly. It's going to be very, very difficult. The mountain section is exceptionally tricky. It's really what makes this circuit so famous. Obviously, we talk about the overtaking opportunities down towards the bottom of the circuit and down towards the more normal corners in inverted commas, but over the mountain it's a challenge, and so if someone comes unstuck there, then it could it'd be terrible for everybody, really. Everybody behind. So let's hope that doesn't happen and things stay clean here in this one. Good to see a man we're on board with there, John McCutcheon, making a first appearance in a long while.
Yeah, he's back this week, so it should be interesting to see what John can do. Obviously, not in the championship by a long margin. So I think what's going to be the interesting thing is we'll keep an eye on John, how he tackles this mountain section. He put out a track guide for how he does the mountain section. Now, it's completely different to how I did it in my official race, which I like to add props to. I won. Right, I've got to get it out there, Ewan. I'm sorry. I've got to mention it. Right, I've got to mention it because I don't win very often because I don't often drive. But I think looking at John's lap compared to what I would do, for instance, like the first corner, he went round in 4th. I would have gone round in 3rd because I've got quite the confidence to throw it in there. But I found that losing a lot of time through the skyline and down the dipper was where my biggest issue was. Now, I don't know about you, right? Obviously, I start getting sheer panic attacks coming from here. As I enter this section, it scares the life out of me as soon as I see that bridge.
Yeah, it's a very scary section, but it's all about commitment through there, and it's all about the kind of bravery and willingness to put the car as close to the wall as you possibly dare, and getting away with it in the end. So it's very, very difficult. But yeah, who knows what is or who's going to come out on top here? We're going to see some frightening things in this qualifying session, really, with these drivers pushing the limits over the top of the mountain there. We're going to see it with the onboard shots, with the offboard shots, some very, very fine margins between car and wall, and it's going to be very, very entertaining indeed. Some of my favourite moments in motorsport in the year are these Bathurst qualifying sessions, these top 10 knockout sessions at Bathurst, either in preparation for the Bathurst 1000 with the V8 supercars, or the 12 hours of Bathurst with the GT3s, the top 10 shootout, and either of those, some of the best driving you'll see all year. And we're going to see a very, very exciting qualifying session here as well over the next 8 minutes.
Yeah, I want to jump on board with Luke Maxwell because he was setting the pace in practice on a 1:55.41. Now, my race, my fastest lap time was a 2 minutes, point something or other, and I couldn't get it any lower, which is no relative to my own skill, really, but there we go. But I think from his point of view, watching Maxwell go through the dipper section and through Sky, it was just unbelievable awe-intaking, really, because he did it with such commitment, and we'll stay on board with him here. He's coming up to turn 4, which is the left-hander cutting. Now you start lifting off just on the corner to try and get the car break down into second gear. He takes this in third, again a completely different pathway to what I do it, and I do it in second just because I'm slow and I just want to make sure I don't hit anything. However, I did still spin in the cutting in my last race. But if we watch him, Ewan, come into this Skyline section, he just does it with such bravery. Now, me at this point, my arm's going, you know, my steering wheel's going all over the place, and it just can go wrong. But look at the ease, he just goes through it. It's like it's not a care in the world.
There's definitely a rhythm that you can find over the top of the mountain here at Bathurst. I always found when I was driving here at this circuit that making one mistake snowballs into a load of others, and we talk about the snowball effect quite often in terms of mistakes, especially in longer races, that they can really get on top of you. But at a circuit like this, in a qualifying session, over one singular lap, mistakes can get on top of you because the corners come quicker and quicker as you go over the top of the mountain, and you just start hitting the walls more and more. In the end, Luke Maxwell has negotiated well through this opening lap here, but let's not forget now, they'll have 3 laps, and they'll be using pretty much all of the 10 minutes to do these 3 laps within, because it is such a long circuit. Paul Crabb setting the early pace with a couple of purple sectors. Luke Maxwell has got one himself as well. Simon Edwards had a few more though. We'll see if Maxwell is able to get anywhere near the so far 3-time champion, and he does. But it's Simon Edwards who's currently got the best time.
Yeah, I think that's precedent. They were literally dead at the same time in practice on a 1:55.41. So I think over this next lap it's going to be unbelievable to watch. Now we have got Phil Glover sat in our booth. We can't pull Phil in, obviously. I'm not going to pull him in through the mountain section because at the end of the day that would scare anybody. But going through here, we've got Paul Crabb on a purple sector 2 currently as well. Another man that seems to negotiate this Skyline dipper section with absolute ease and no problem at all. He just throws it in. Through he goes. I would have already been down in second by now. That's partly because I'm scared. But he just done the whole thing in fourth and third. And I think that's the difference in confidence and quality and well, probably ability, to be honest, Ewan, isn't it?
I mean, these drivers are the best radical drivers you can get, really. And so it's very difficult to match them. And when you're so comfortable with a car as these guys are now, you hear very few complaints about this car compared to what we did at the start of last season when this was introduced again. Obviously we had that first race at Road Atlanta, nearly 30 cars on the grid, and there was a lot of people very unhappy with the way this car behaves. You see a lot more of that, a lot less of that now. Everybody's much more comfortable with it. All of these drivers very comfortable, very quick as well. And so it's no real surprise to see the way they're going through here. Paul Crabb coming over the line right now. Don't forget the actual timing line there is very early in the straight, and Paul Crabb uses that to go to the top there now.
Yeah, John McHutchison is going to take pole away. Simon Edwards is going to go straight away after that as well. Luke Maxwell is flying. What's he going to do as he goes across the line? Look at his purple sections at the moment for Luke Maxwell. Ooh. stays in 4th place. It's a bit of a shocker there, as Seth Brown's coming down as well, down into Murray's the last corner. He's going faster for himself. Obviously, green is the fastest that they're doing. Purple is the fastest overall. Seth Brown jumps himself up into 7th place. Ben Underdown is another one. Now, we talk about consistency this season, Ewan. I think Ben's kind of been the epiphany of that, hasn't he, really? He's just been Mr. Consistent from the start.
He has been very consistent. It's got him to 4th in the standings now, but Paul LeMay and Paul Clark are only 6 points behind him, joint in that position. In terms of their total points, obviously drop weeks have to figure out there. But Ben Underdown has been very consistent indeed. I'm afraid he just clipped the grass on the way into the final corner there, and so he is a bit off the pace here right now, but we'll still have more laps to try and get in on this. I have to say, practice times were very, very spread out compared to what we're seeing right now. This is a very close qualifying session, and I don't think we've seen all we're going to see from Luke Maxwell either.
No, I think Paul Crabb is on for another one as well here. He's green and 2 purples and another green. So Paul Crabb is obviously clearly comfortable at Bathhurst. The main point of Bathhurst is that Skyline Dipper section. If you can nail that to the point of where you're in a flow, you can consistently go fast. Now, obviously, from Paul Crabb's point of view, he's obviously flying as well, but so is Simon Edwards. They are practically round about the same amount of point on the circuit. Mr. Edwards here is coming down as well, but he's gone into pole as Crabb on a 155.5. What is Edwards going to do is he comes across the line as well. 155.615. He stays in 2nd place. And from Paul Crabb's point of view, I think that could be a well unexpected pole position as we go into the last 1 minute 49.
It could well be. John McCutcheon, has not been able to improve there either. He's going to stay 3rd. Luke Maxwell improves to a 56.0, but that's not going to get him anything other than 4th place. Paul LeMay needs a 2nd to improve his position, and so he's not going to manage that. Mike Booson now finally turns up. I forgot he was in the session, to be honest. He's now finally got himself together and got a 7th place on this qualifying session right now, but clearly a little bit off the pace compared to what we've seen before. And same with Ben Underdown as well. Some drivers just can't get themselves hooked up around here. It's a very, very difficult circuit, Bathhurst, and one that doesn't get raced all that often. But those who are good at it are very, very good, and it's difficult to keep up.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben Underdown is heading round Murray's now, the final corner here on this tricky circuit here in Bathurst, Australia. What is he going to be able to do? 158.7 stays in 13th, and we've got 17 cars on track. Jamie Bird is another one. He's currently sitting in 8th place. Richard Brown is probably on for the biggest improvements. We've got Richard and Seth. We've got none of the Grahams tonight. No Graham Brown here, as we see Richard Brown go into the wall. So unfortunately that's not going to have any doing. 26 seconds left of qualifying. Jamie Bird does not improve, goes on a 157.369 here this evening as well. So, okay, so that's going to be a tight. We've got a tight grid. We've got a lot of cars within about 1.3 from 1st to 5th. Rushing to the mountain. Do we think they're going to be sensible?
I think the fact that it is slightly longer race means that maybe there is an increased chance of it being a little bit more sensible, because the risk here is so large as well. One driver goes off, everybody's going to get collected in behind, so everybody's going to have to be really, really careful on that one, and the longer race maybe will just encourage that.
Yeah, so we've got the grid up for us there in front of us. Paul Crabb is in 1st, Simon Edwards in 2nd, John McCutcheon 3rd, Luke Maxwell 4th, Paul LeMay 5th, Paul Clark 6th, Mike Booson in 7th, Jamie Bird in 8th, Seth Brown 9th, David Roddeston is in 10th, Darrell Taylor 11th, and Damien G down in 12th place. Beyond that, Ben Underdown is in 13th, Phil Glover 14th, Phil Jocelyn 15th, Richard Brown 16th, and Dave Dawson down in 17th place. Now, from our point of view, obviously we've got the likes of Maxwell in fourth. Paul LeMay has been quick as well this week in officials. I've seen him, and people have mentioned that he's been naturally fast as well. Looking may have an improvement. We know how easy it is to get quali wrong, Ewan. You know what I mean? It's not a difficult thing to do for this circuit. What do we think these drivers are going to have to do? You know, we're just about to go green light, so we'll catch up with that one very, very shortly. 4 on tracks, 5, and we are green here this evening from Bathhurst, and currently Paul Crabb is leading us away with John McHutchison jumping into second place. Simon Edwards is third, Luke Maxwell fourth, Paul LeMay fifth, Mike Bousson is up one place in sixth. He jumped to Paul Clark, as so did Damien G. All away so far, so good, very, very cleanly.
Yeah, very clean from everybody, and that's what you want to see. But you'd expect that into Hell Corner, even into Griffin's Bend as well. It's not too difficult to stay single file and stay sensible through those corners. It is a little bit more difficult through here. It's going to be a case of follow the leader for John McHutchison there. He very much could have gone down the inside, decided not to, as Simon Edwards is already rubbing the wall on the exit of the cutting.
Yeah, he's rubbing it now as we come up through 5, 6 and 7 over the mountain section. Look at that. Simon Edwards there is looking a little bit ragged, I would say, for lap 1. And he has got Luke Maxwell pressurising him right behind him currently as these guys duck down into the skyline for the first time this evening.
Absolutely, this is the thing about rhythm around this circuit. Simon Edwards didn't get into it initially. Luke Maxwell slightly put off by the car in front, you might imagine, and has dived in down the dipper there himself, and very nearly it all went wrong for him as well. It stacked up everybody in the midfield certainly, but it looks like everybody pretty much has gotten away with that one cleanly. It's a very good start from everyone.
Yeah, I think if we're looking at, if it wasn't the fact that we're looking at a league race, and I think if we were looking at anything other than that, I think there would have been chaos, and there was chaos earlier on as John McHutchison here chasing down Paul Crabb, literally currently at the moment, not even a tenth back. You can see him literally full on nose to tail. There is Mr. McHutchison right behind us at the moment. Oh, there's got to be, it's contact. Crabb's off.
Grab off. And John McHutchison is redressing positions maybe, but maybe just lost a bit of time as well. But after that little bit of contact, Simon Edwards, Luke Maxwell and Paul LeMay all went through there.
Yeah, McHutchison now down into fourth place, and we'll have a look back and see what happened to Paul Crabb. I think that was contact from the nose of John McHutchison. We saw him on the gearbox there. It was very, very close from these guys, and there we go. Yes, there was contact from John McHutchison, and Paul Crabb unfortunately goes round. John now sitting in third place, Paul LeMay in fourth. But more importantly, Simon Edwards has got the lead. A very unexpected lead, I think.
Yeah, I think it is a slightly unexpected lead, to be honest. Well, especially considering what we saw on the first lap from him, just rubbing the wall out the cutting. Oh my word, that was committed as well through the left-handers at the top of the hill. So yeah, it's very, very much a case of a lap-by-lap basis, really, with this race right now. Staying consistent for these entire 20 laps is going to be half the battle today.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I found when I raced it earlier on. It was just being consistent, and it was just so tough as well. It looked like Jamie Bird has also rubbed the wall there on his rear left of that car. You see a little bit of scuffing and damage there. He looks like he's been in contact with the wall, so it looks like there as well, but he is currently closing down on Mike Bousson. It's up 2 places currently into fifth. That start for Mike could have been a lot worse, and he's making most of what he's been given, hasn't he? He qualified down in 7th, he's now up into 5th, and he's trying to close on to the back of a very fast Paul LeMay at the moment. And I think from that point of view, that's probably the best that Mike could ask for.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike doesn't look particularly comfortable at the moment in this particular track setup, with this car right now. Unfortunately, he does look a little bit shaky, I'm afraid, but he is doing well for the situation, in the top 5 right now, although Jamie Bird is right all over him now and might even challenge him into turn 2. Bousson not defending the inside, wants to grab the slipstream from Paul LeMay as much as he possibly can, and he has got that, but Jamie Bird has got the position. I wonder if Bousson actually just lifted off into turn 2 there. He really is playing the long game in this race.
Well, we've got a long time remaining. We've still got 17 laps and a pit stop to go. And I think from Busson's point of view, that's probably sensible, Ewan. I think the challenging early on is great and getting yourself into that position. But with this such a long race and a 1:57 lap and a pit stop thrown in, maybe this might not work out too well for Mike. This might not work out too bad, I should say, for Mike Busson.
Absolutely, he's just focusing indeed on not making any mistakes here in this race, and I don't think he's going to win as a result of that, but he will get a good result from it, probably a top 5 I would have said. Jamie Bird is going out with a real bit of pace right now. He is quick, there's no doubt about that, but he's aggressive driving and trying to make these moves as quickly as possible. Is that going to give him a clean car by the end of the race? We'll wait and see, because if he can continue on at this pace, then he's going to be right up there. Now he's on the back of Paul LeMay already and going through.
Yeah, Jamie Bird on the left-hand side there as well. As they go up under the bridge, they're going to come to the right-hander. Dropping down currently at the moment as they're coming in to the chase, which is that left-right-hander. It's going to be in third gear here from Jamie Bird, and he does make it through. Next on his list is John McHutchison, but Seth Brown, Paul Clark, David Rolliston, Damien G and Darrell Taylor are all looking spicy within this little 5-car section here. Running further down, this is the battle for 7th place, with Paul Clark currently occupying that space. As you can see there, Paul spotting from iLoungeRacing.co.uk, one of the sponsors this evening. Please go and check them out. That would be absolutely amazing there for all your sim rig needs from iLounge Racing. A great after service as well, so definitely worth going to check them out, see what they do and what they can do for you. But I think at the moment, from Paul Clark's point of view, he's got to try and get away from Seth Brown. Seth didn't have the best practice, to be fair, and there was a few times where he made mistakes that maybe you would expect them not to make, but we know how difficult Bathhurst is.
Yeah, it certainly is, and so far we haven't seen very many of them in this race. We obviously saw John McHutchinson and Paul Crabb come together earlier on, and that's really done for Paul Crabb, I'm afraid, back in the pack right now, making his way through with some moves back there. But yeah, we're so far seeing a very clean race, but it's starting to spread out now, and this is the kind of portion in the race where a single car incident isn't going to take out the entire field like it would have done on lap 1. It might take out quite a few and it might block the road, but it's not going to take out the entire field. So it looks like we have survived those opening laps without complete catastrophe.
Yeah, absolutely. The leaders are coming on to that long Conrad straight at the back here with Maxwell. I think from Maxwell's point of view, he's just got to try and stay in that draft, pull himself in as quickly as possible, which he is doing at the moment. Two and a half tenths at the moment as they go round the right-hander coming into the chase. And the battle, I think, to be honest, will be between these two. Both of them were exceedingly quick in practice. But for me, if I had to go out and say it's going to be one of these two, do you know what? I really fancy Maxwell. He's just been blistering in practice. You know, he's up 2 positions from where he qualified, Ewan, and I just think that he might have the edge today.
Yeah, I think I certainly wouldn't put it past him. He hasn't had, obviously, the best defence of his title here this season. He has been down the order in a few of the races, a couple of zeros next to his name as well. But he's only 2 points behind Mike Busson in the championship right now. And as things stand, he would vault into that second place, just behind Simon Edwards. And he does look stronger than the three-time champion just up in front of him, as Paul Crabb is trying to recover here. Phil Glover just up in front right now, just a little bit wide through turn 2. Crabb going to want to get this done before the mountain so he doesn't get slowed up the entire way round, but I'm afraid he's not been able to, and so he is going to lose in this time behind Phil Glover over the top of the mountain.
The interesting thing from Glover there is when he come round into down through the cut-in, he positioned his car in kind of the middle of the track, really, and that gave Crabb no option because that area is quite tight that you've got nowhere to go for Crabb, so he couldn't dive up the inside because there was no room, and he could dive the outside. Now, is that smart driving from Phil Glover, you think, because they are coming on to Conrad and Crabb is considerably quick?
Yeah, I think maybe it would be smarter for Phil Glover to just let Crabb go here, really, rather than trying to defend. But it was a good defensive manoeuvre just to keep it in the middle of the road there, because he didn't want to go full defensive and completely compromise his line through turn 2. Otherwise, you will get overtaken, even on that short run towards the cutting, which is not an ideal overtaking spot anyway. So he did well there, Nick Glover, but whether he should be defending at this point, whether it's beneficial to him at this stage is another debate, really. As a number of drivers are getting close at this stage, but not quite going through. I wonder if this is a product of the pit stop being a thing here in this race, or are people just waiting a little bit because of those pit stops? Not entirely sure. Certainly no waiting in this battle.
Yeah, Crab definitely sent it there on Phil Glover and then couldn't manage to get it stopped down into the chase at the moment as he's going now up into Hell Corner, which is turn 1, and doing a stellar job. But here comes Maxwell. Is he going to be looking at make surely he's not going to run around the outside of 2? There can't be room there. And Maxwell thinks better of it this time around, but it looks like he might get a little bit of a better exit on this run up into 3 and 4. But again, he's just going to be as they were going through the mountain. Buson and LeMay are also going to be as they were. Seth Brown, Paul Clark, again, same type of thing as they were. Ben Underdown's cleared Phil Glover now as well, so that's Underdown up into 13th. But that's the thing with this circuit, isn't it? Is if you don't get the... Oh, that was very close.
Dave Rolliston.
Yeah.
Dave Rolliston's off at the mountain. He's, well, barely. It's the cutting, but even so, he might have even did what you did.
Shh, don't tell everyone.
We'll find out.
Yeah, see if Rollo did exactly what I did in my official. I lost my 8-second lead. But I still managed to win, and that's exactly what I did. The only difference is my nose scraped the inside left of the wall. So there you go. If Dave Rolliston can do it and I can do it, I'm happy. At least I'm not the only one. But poor old Rollo has got to start trying to come back through the field here as we see a big, is that puff of smoke sitting down in Forest Elbow there. And that, I believe, may have been Phil Jocelyn that has now jumped into the pits. No, this was at the top of the hill. So who was the candidate? Oh, he got a little bit out of shape there. He's running out of shape. That's not going to stop. Oh. Is he going to hold it though? Because Underdown's coming. Oh. Well.
And that was very close. But yeah, I think it could have been one of Paul LeMay, Jamie Bird, or Mike Bousson actually who created that smoke. Because I think Jamie and G and Paul Crabb have come to blows in a battle between themselves. Maybe at the chase, it's a battle for the lead actually just begins to liven up a little bit. Is Luke Maxwell willing to go through at this stage, or will he stay behind Simon Edwards with that pit stop in mind? Very soon, of course, the predicted pit window is open right now, and we think that they can go 13 laps on a tank of fuel, or with the limited tanks that they have today. And so you can pit now and go to the end. We believe so, anyway.
Yeah, should we be able to here? Let's have a look and see. This is Crab. Forces. Whoa! Gee, all out of shape. Hit the outside curb and went in and done that. Dusted there as well. Paul Crab, another man who unfortunately, through no fault of his own, come a cropper of the actions of Damien G. But Simon Edwards still got Maxwell tucked up right behind him at the moment here. There is Maxwell, not letting him get away. He's not giving him room, but all the while, there's a Scotsman further back from that in 3rd place who could really come and play a part here, because he's been closing and closing. He's done the fastest lap of the race on a 1:56.24 at the moment. So could we have an interesting freeway? And will John really put himself in that position, Ewan, because he's not in the championship, is he?
No, he's certainly not, and I think that's going to want him, or make him want to get involved even more here and try and go for the win even more. To be fair, the championship pretty much wrapped up at this stage. I don't think it's going to be weighing too heavily on the minds of Edwards or Maxwell in this one, and certainly not McCutchinson, who's got a great run out of the chase here, and he's going to go on the outside line into Murray's, the final corner. Around the outside he goes, very impressive. Of course, the corner where him and Paul Crabb made contact earlier on, McCutchinson lost 2 places because of that. He's just regained 1 at the final corner on this occasion, and he's up to 2nd place now, with Maxwell getting out of shape into turn 1 as well.
Yeah, look, Maxwell's got to try and settle down now. He has been naturally quick. We've seen that all the way through, and he has just got to settle a little bit. As we can see here, Buson is trying to clear back past Jamie Bird at the moment on this run down into turn 2. Bird's left the door wide open on the inside. Buson is going to say thank you very much. He's going to get the job done into turn 1, and that is Mike Bousson back up into 5th place. Seth Brown again still behind Paul Clark. I think this battle is just going to rage on and on and on all the way through. Now, one of the things I want to speak about is if you're Simon Edwards, you've got John McHutchinson dropping out to a second. You've got Luke Maxwell dropping further back from that. But I suppose my main point here would be for Seth Brown and Paul Clark. Would you cover each other off in the pits? Or would you sit back and think, do you know what, I can actually go a little bit further?
Well, if I was Simon Edwards, I would certainly stay out there at the moment. He's got the clean air, he's got the first position, he's got the track position. And so I wouldn't want to give that up right now, because if you look at where he is on the circuit and where the others are, he would pit and he would likely come out in traffic with some of those a little bit lower down in the order. Although for McHutchinson and Maxwell, I would definitely be in early, maybe not this early like right now, because as I said, they would also come out in traffic, and that's not really very beneficial. However, in a couple of laps' time, when a couple of those drivers behind have come in, maybe it would be worth the undercut to see if it's really worth anything here in this race. Because after all, nobody knows. We've not seen this in the Radical Race Series in the past, not this season, not previously either. So nobody really knows quite how it's going to affect the race.
Yeah, as well. Good evening, Mr. Zach Sweeney. Of course, we have Edwards leading again. Yes, Simon Edwards is running away currently at the moment. I think that the thing is, from our point of view, he's kind of only just got away, hasn't he? You know, Maxwell and McHutchinson have been fighting. Maxwell's trying to come back through. McHutchinson took the position away. John is not even in the championship lead by any shape or form, but wants to go out and have a good old go and try and get the victory. But I think this is the point where Simon Edwards has only just got that lead, and now he's kind of making good use of it.
Yeah, it's not a case of he's been there since the start and he's been running away with it ever since. He has been challenged in this race, and I think that battle for second place between John McHutchinson and Luke Maxwell really did open this gap initially. And once you've broken the slipstream, even at a circuit like this with so many corners, you can begin to get away. The slipstream does keep you in check for quite a long time around here at Bathhurst. Obviously, it's not quite like a Monza, where it's almost difficult to fall out of the slipstream sometimes. And you can very much get away through the course of a lap or two, or even less. Even a few corners, you can get away and out with the slipstream, out of sight. But even so, it does act as that little bit of a safety net to keep you in. And McHutchinson's going to have to work very hard to get back into that slipstream now, because Edwards is going to make absolute sure that the gap doesn't drop below a second again.
Yeah, well, we've just seen it there. Maxwell entered out of the elbow at 8 tenths, and he's pulled back 2 tenths down the straight. So it is clearly working 8 tenths out at the moment. It's not massive gains, but anything 2 tenths is better than nothing. Now, from Seth Brown's point of view, I'm surprised he's sitting that far out. I kind of would have been using Clark as much as possible, but he seems to be having a game now as they go around the right-hander down into the chase now. Is this going to be Seth Brown's opportunity? It's not. McHutchinson setting the fastest lap of the race on 1:56.018 at the moment. That is blistering from John McHutchinson. Still not down into practice time, of course. So practice time, Edwards on a 1:55.4, as was Maxwell. So we're getting now down to that kind of times that we're expecting from the top drivers, and at the moment McHutchinson has got it down below a second now.
He certainly has, and that's what Edwards was trying to avoid, because that will now grab the slipstream for McHutchinson, in which case I wouldn't be too inclined to actually pit in before Simon Edwards. If he's got the slipstream anyway, he's there, he's done the hard work, and I wouldn't want to throw that away with a strategy, trying to be too clever, trying to be too smart with it. I would just want to stay where I am, although he's got to make sure that he stays within that second. As I mentioned, it's not one of those, it's not like Monza where it's almost hard to fall out the slipstream sometimes. This is Bathhurst, there's a lot of corners, it's very difficult, and so you can very easily fall out of the slipstream just as quickly as you got back into it again. So McHudson's going to have to work almost as hard to stay within and just under that 1 second margin towards the end of this first half of the race.
Oh, there's 8th place in the wall. That's Paul Clark. Paul Clark is off just on that run into Skyline. Phil Glover has also joined him in the background there, managing to Tokyo drift that one to safety, but it looks like Paul Clark did not quite have that same success here this evening as he goes around the left out. Oh, scrapes the wall on the inside as well. Did he manage to keep it out of the... Yes. Just kept it out the other side there for Paul Clark, but that would put the end of him and Seth Brown's battle. However, Buisson and LeMay are still battling at the moment, and you know, Buisson's still got Jamie Bird behind him. He's trying to close down to Paul LeMay. He's 2 seconds in front of him at the moment. Just can't quite get there, can they? Because when he's got Jamie Bird behind him who's been quick, it kind of slows you down almost, doesn't it? I know that might sound crazy, but it does, because you spend more time worrying about the driver behind.
Yeah, you stop mirror driving a bit, and that certainly slows you down a lot. I think that's what's contributed to this 2 second gap between Mike Buisson and Paul LeMay here, because they were battling earlier on towards turn 2. Now there's going to be no move made, but Mike Buisson would have been looking at his mirrors going up towards there. He might, you know, break a little bit early, a little bit late, and he'll lose a tenth here or there, and it all adds up by the end. And that's why you've got to focus so hard on just keeping your eyes forward. That's why you hear eyes forward a lot of the time, because you know you can't be mirror driving. You will lose time, and even here you can see the pressure being applied to him. It's allowed Jamie Bird to not only get a bit closer, but the gap that's opening far quicker is the one to Paul LeMay that's got to now 2.4 seconds as a result of that pressure. That's why you've got to completely focus forwards and not worry about those behind you until they literally are right there.
I think that's one of the interesting things here as well, is we've got 3 temps between this battle. We are on lap 11 of 20. There is a pit stop remaining. McHutchinson and Edwards is now down to literally 6 temps, and it's going to be coming down as well as before the end of the Conrod Straight as they go down into the chase. Bathhurst in Radicals is mental. I could vouch for that one earlier, as I was in this race earlier on. Not in this specific race, obviously, because they would leave me for dust, but in my own little official there as well. Jamie Bird does clear back through Mike Buisson now. From these two guys' point of view, they've either got to stop the fighting and agree to follow, because Mike Hutchinson has now got the fastest again on a 1:55.7. That will contribute towards him. In goes Bird. Bird is the first one to take that pit stop. From McHutchinson and Edwards' point of view, Edwards is being caught. Would you get into the pits at the moment, or would you try and kind of carry on and hope that the gap can be extended?
I would carry on and very much enjoy the clean air now. You've got to remember that McHutchinson can either come in this time or next time, really. The drivers can't go much further than that unless they can scrape out 14 laps, I suppose. But you know, we're going to see the pit stop soon. Edwards isn't going to be left out to dry for very long anyway. He's got that lead. Even if McHutchinson does get that undercut, I can't see him getting such an undercut that would allow him a 1 second lead over Edwards. So just keep the clean air, minimise the risk here in this race right now for Edwards. Do your own thing and worry about the battles a little bit later on. I wouldn't try and do anything fancy here if I was Edwards or McHutchinson, to be fair. But it just depends how much they value track position. I wouldn't value it too highly, really. It's not impossible to overtake here at Bathhurst. It's quite difficult at half the circuit, but the other half, down the bottom, it can be done. So I wouldn't value track position too heavily.
No, I mean, you sit here and we say that, don't we? Because from our point of view, it's probably what we would do. But, you know, you're talking about a 7k IR and a 6.5k IR driver here. You know, their perception and their mental attitude is completely different to mine and yours. To say, look, don't worry about it. I can't see that. I think McHutchinson is going to be wanting to make that move, and I think regardless of how he goes about it, I don't think he's going to obviously come to terms like they did last time with McHutchinson and Crabb, but I think at the end of the day he's going to want that position, and I think that's going to be the important thing here from John. I think John is just going to go for it. I don't think he's going to worry about trying to sort of play the long game. I'd be surprised, very surprised if he is.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he hangs back for the entirety of the rest of the race here and doesn't go for it, because yeah, he's just here for race wins, has been for many seasons now. Isn't able to turn up to many rounds, but when he does, he is very strong, and it's a testament to his talent, really, because it means that he's not really putting as many hours in as maybe some others are. He's still able to be very fast indeed, and that's a testament to him. But he's really getting close now. He's starting to apply the pressure, and I just wonder whether it's him taking more risk, or Simon Edwards just pegging himself back ever so slightly? Not entirely sure, but we can't be far away from seeing these two in.
Yeah, I think we're going to be seeing them in either the end of this lap or the next lap. I don't think they're going to have much longer after that as well. I think Buson is still running, so the fact that the notification has said that he's had an accident, I don't think I'm going to worry too much about it. Paul LeMay has gone into the pits as well. He's come out, he'd be in 8th place behind Phil Glover at the moment there as well. Edwards has opened up about half a second at the moment, so he's got the gap. And let's just see if these guys do go into the pits, which is what we are expecting here, because they do have this mandatory pit stop that they have to make. And we do know that they're only going to be able to go 13, maybe if they could eke out 14, but I would be very surprised if they go much further.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if they can go much further. Here comes Simon Edwards. John McCutcheon's able to carry on one more, so that's very interesting indeed. Maybe that is the limit for Simon Edwards, and McCutcheon has just been able to go that little bit further. I'm not entirely sure, but surely it's only going to be one lap here for McCutcheon to extend this lead. Now he's going to need the lap of his life, and it's going to be a very, very quick one indeed. Simon Edwards will just be praying that he ends up in clean air. Yeah,
absolutely. We'll see where Edwards comes out. He's still currently sat in the pits at the moment. Mike Buson is gone in as well. I'm expecting it now, but here comes Paul LeMay and Phil Glover. Glover's on the right, LeMay's on the inside. Glover's gone round. Oh, but that, I've never seen that done there.
No, it's well, it's easy to do when you're side by side. You're pushed out so wide through the chase there that you do just end up on the grass, and you can now end up in the wall very quickly as well. But you don't see side by side carried through into the chase that often, as Richard Brown here going to be very unimpressed, flashing the lights there at Phil Glover, who's presumably just making sure his damage is going to be repaired on the way into pit lane there, because he will have picked up a little bit of something from that.
Yeah, definitely nose deep into a wall. He's definitely going to do some damage to this SR10, I can tell you that much. Partly from my own experiences, really. But McCutcheon, he tags the wall on the exit of the Forest Elbow, and he's going to be wanting that not to happen. Pit lane time of about 45 seconds currently. McCutcheon, we think, has got to go in. He's out of fuel.
Oh.
He didn't make it.
This is the risk. This is the huge risk that you take when you're going one lap further. You've got to make sure that you can make it on fuel, and he is spluttering his way into the box. This will be over now for John McCutcheon. He'll probably be able to hang on to a podium, because there's a big gap behind Luke Maxwell, but his chances of a race winner over. It could even be worse if he even makes it into the box.
He's clutching in. He's let it roll. He's clutched in. There we go. He clutched it into the box just to make sure he could get there. He went for it. Yeah, he went for it, and it didn't work out. And here come the other guys. Is he going to make it to his pit box as we sit here anxiously looking at John McCutcheon? He tried, and he failed. But that, I suppose, would, is part of John, isn't it? Scottish bred, William Wallace, with flowing through his blood.
He's not going to make it here. He's not going to make it. He's short of his box. He's at the very end of pit lane, of course, after a good qualifying. That's not his box. He's not made it.
No.
He's back to pit lane. He'll drop to the very back of the field. And this is why I was saying earlier on to all three of them, really, don't do anything too smart. Don't do anything too clever, because it can easily go wrong. You're all in a race-winning potential situation here. With the slipstream going on and the group the way it was, McCutcheon didn't need to go that lap further. If he was that tight on fuel, he didn't need to go that one lap further to be able to have a great chance still at winning this race. A real shame to see for him. He's going to be, well, if he continues, he's still going to be down 15th position. Real shame for him.
No, he took a chance, did McCutcheon, and unfortunately didn't make it, and that's a bit of a shame. But I think overall, did he have to try, do you think, Ewan, from his point of view?
Absolutely not. No way. He didn't have to try anything there. I mean, first of all, he had more fuel on board than Simon Edwards by the looks of things, so his pit stop may have even been slightly shorter, and he could have jumped in that way. But even so, even if he comes out right behind Simon Edwards there would have been at least one chance for him in the remainder of this race for him to get through. So I don't see any reason really why he had to go and do that.
Yeah, does seem a little bit of a crazy decision by McCutcheon. I'm not quite sure what he was thinking, whether or not he thought he could have clutched through the dipper to try and say through. I'm not entirely sure why that decision was made, but that has brought the battle of the fastest two, I think, with Maxwell and Edwards. And we can see Maxwell now I'm hoping that he's gone in, he's settled down in the pit stops, and he's going to come out and produce what we've seen from him in practice. I think he is quick, and maybe I'll probably put the curses on him by saying I think he's my choice, but I think from his point of view, I think Maxwell can still do this. If he can just hang on to Edwards through the mountain, I think he's got a great opportunity. Yeah,
I think he has got a great chance here at going through. Well, goodness me, side by side there, Jamie Bird getting through. But yeah, I think Maxwell does have a good chance here. You saw the fastest time for him came in practice, and I just wonder whether that's because he was setting all the laps in practice, just doing lap after lap after lap, and just getting quicker as he went, really, as the fuel came down, and whether he was doing a long run throughout that fastest lap in practice. So I'm not entirely sure, of course, and maybe that's not true, but it certainly seems that he's finding his feet in this race, and he's only getting stronger as this race goes on. We see so often in races like the Bathhurst 1000 that the first portion of the race, the first 100 laps of that race, is basically about keeping your car clean, staying with the front group, staying on the lead lap, and then you can do something in the final hour or two. This race obviously not as long as that, and nowhere near the same mentality, but Maxwell has applied that mentality in a way to this race. We've not really seen much of him. He's been a bit quiet in the first half. He's been maybe even a bit slow, you could say, at times compared to what we're expecting from him. But now he can see the end of the race. Now he's starting to gather pace and take a few more risks as well, which is certainly giving him a chance of a race win.
Well, on that note, it looks like some person has taken a few more risks. And this is what has happened to Phil Glover. I think he actually punctured the wall again at the top. We'll try and get another view of that there of Phil Glover. But I think this was the end of Phil Glover's race, straight again into the wall. And I'll tell you what we'll do on that note is bring Phil into the booth. Phil, good evening. How are you?
Hello from down under.
Hello, bud. I've just seen you go into the wall. Is that race done, you think?
I think so by the time it's all repaired. Yeah, it doesn't suffer fuel steadily here, I'm afraid.
So what happened then, Phil? Could you just not get to grips with Bathhurst this evening? Because that's not the first time.
No, it's well, it's not the first time I've been here for sure, but yeah, I've had a few problems tonight, haven't I?
Yeah, it seems to be. Any specific reason, you reckon?
I think the tyres start to go off a little bit, and then you just kind of get sidetracked. I got sidetracked going down the straight, to be honest, by somebody passing me. Doesn't take much.
Yeah, I think that was Paul LeMay went past you, Phil. But look, we're going to get back to the action, Phil. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having a chat with you next week in Nords.
Yeah, no problem.
Take care. Could we have tyre wear, do you think? Because it feels kind of come out and said tyre things start going up, and I think from my own experience, probably they did. We didn't go, obviously I didn't go as far as 17 laps, we only went 11, but could that be a factor towards the end, Ewan?
I mean, even in the shorter races that we've seen, especially last season when everyone was getting to grips with this car and the increased tyre wear that brings with it, I think the tyres were affecting throughout those races. So now that we're going 10-15 minutes longer in this race, 9 laps longer than the officials here in this race, I think the tyres definitely are going to affect things in this one. And maybe that's why Maxwell was hanging back early on as well. That's possibly another reason as to why we're seeing this leading battle. But yeah, that's certainly going to make things trickier. Bathurst is tricky enough anyway. You don't need tyres going off as well, as Jamie Bird is really having a great end to his race. He was 8th not so long ago, and now he's knocking on the door of a top 5.
Yeah, he's got currently chasing down Darrell Taylor in 5th, mind you. Taylor has been kind of gone about his business this evening. and is going to get this 6th place. Unfortunately, I think Bird is going to go past him for 5th, which he has done. One of them things I want to pick up on is a certain individual, Mr. Paul Crabb, who we saw earlier on drop all the way down to the back of the field, currently sitting in 4th place. Now, the question was on our lips earlier on. The pit stop window was lap 7 to 13. He went in on 7. Now, that wasn't... Oh, as I was just saying that, he was having a flyer there, and he goes off at turn 1. But, you know, commentators curse full ball there. But could he make the end, do you think?
Yeah, I think he'll make it. Lap 7, I mean, the leaders came in on lap 13, or Edwards and Maxwell certainly did anyway. So yeah, I think Paul Crabb would be making it. And to be fair, it was an inspired call from him actually to come in early on, because he was down in the mid pack when it was really congested and difficult for him to make progress as well. He could see he's made great progress on his own, up to 4th place now. That's a real good recovery from the incident he had at the end of lap 1.
Yeah, but he is doing 157.44. Leader's doing 156.92 for Maxwell, so he's not too far off the pace. You know, we've seen Crabbe was quick anyway, wasn't he, at the beginning? So I'm no surprise that he has managed to recover. Another man that didn't look like he's recovered is Mr. David Rolleston. He looks like he's gone off here with Damien G. I think Rollo again, is this going to be up into the same corner? Yes. Now, that wasn't the same as what I did.
Bigger on this occasion, or just more speed on the way in, and losing the rear, unfortunately. So yeah, unfortunate for David Rolleston there, who's gone around. John McCutcheon making some progress here as well on Graham Brown, and well, going to get through very easily indeed. Sorry, it was Richard Brown, wasn't it? Not Graham.
No, yeah, we got. Good job we ain't got all 4 of them in. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Richard Brown making some progress, but that might be it now for McCutcheon's in 10th place. We'll see on that. But this battle for the race is starting to liven up on the penultimate lap now.
Now, I do wonder if Maxwell hung on to his tyres, you know. Do you know that period where he dropped back about 1.3, 1.4 away, entered into the pits behind him, and he just... I don't know. I think he may have just been tyre wearing on that, holding up on that one to try and maintain his tyres, because he... Last lap and 1 more to go. He's looking spicy here, and I think he could get this if he can hang on to Edwards.
Yeah, very much so. It could be an interesting one. I think Maxwell's got a great chance at even challenging for a race lead, but I do just worry that he's not been hanging back so far in this battle, but he's actually just not been able to get anywhere near Simon Edwards. We'll have a great indication here now as we watch from the Forest Oval all the way down to the chase. Is it the fact that Maxwell's backing off and not going for this, or can he just not do it? It certainly looks like he was backing off and deciding not to, because he's pulled alongside now. He maybe doesn't quite have the straight line speed that Edwards does, but he does have the grip and the inside line as well, and he will take the lead here, surely.
Yeah, that is it again. Edwards sliding through the chase. Could that be job done there as well? Darrell Taylor, unfortunately, had an incident, has lost a position to Mike Bousson as we're going to come round on the final lap of the race here. Do we think, could it have been too early? Would you have gone for it on the last lap?
Well, I don't really know. I think it's a risk at Bathhurst especially to leave it till the last lap. Obviously, there's other circuits where, you know, like Daytona, for example, where it's sensible to leave it to the last lap, and probably the right thing to do in all circumstances. At this circuit, the overtaking is a lot more, or a lot less obvious, a lot less easy, and so a lot harder, some would say. And so I think it's a risk leaving it until the last lap. You've got to just do it when you can, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think if Maxwell is holding more tyres at the moment, he's pulling out a gap going up through the mountain, so maybe Maxwell did hang on to his tyres there as well. He's pulled out nearly a tenth on Edwards already, and if he can maintain that, if he can get it out to about 6-7 tenths going through here now, dropping down through Forest Elbow, I think he's into a great opportunity here, Ewan, to hold on to this win.
Yeah, I think he's got a fantastic chance. This is another reason why, Maxwell, you just have to take your chances when you can. Because at Bathhurst, you've got the mountain and you can stretch out tenths of a second over the top here. I don't think he's done enough to guarantee himself a race win just yet. Simon Edwards, though, is quite a long way back.
He's got 6 tenths. I think he's done, Ewan. I think he's done because I don't think Edwards is going to get close enough. He's going to be about a 2-3 tenth gap closure down this part of the straight. And I think from Maxwell's point of view, you want to kind of keep the car going straight, mate. Take the shortest route as they're coming into the chase for the final time. I don't think he's going to get it. This is going to be Maxwell's win all day if Maxwell can hold on to it. Through Murray's he goes. He's opened up nearly a second at the end there. I think he held on to tyres, Ewan, and Luke Maxwell is going to come across the line and take this victory in Bathhurst. Take a bow, because you got to admit, that was epic.
Fantastic driving from Luke Maxwell. He really did hold himself back in the early portion of that race, made sure that his tyres and his car were going to make it through, and then once he had the opportunity to strike, he absolutely did. And Simon Edwards had nothing to answer for him at the end there. Edwards did have the better straight line speed there. Maxwell was struggling to pull alongside when he made that overtake. Edwards was closing a lot on Conrad Strait on that last lap there. However, it wasn't enough. And yeah, Luke Maxwell takes a very, very well calculated win.
Yeah, Darryl Taylor just made the move on Mike Bousson. We haven't seen much of Taylor this year, especially more on track, I think. But I think from his point of view, he's had a great Bathhurst. Overtake Mike Bousson, drop Bousson down into 7th, and Taylor's going to come across the line, take 6th and 7th. Even Ben Underdown, Mr. Consistency himself, couldn't quite make it up past 8th. Clark down into 9th. Then we got Seth Brown and Richard Brown here having this battle together. Obviously Seth without the E, Richard with an E, just to complicate it a little bit more. And lucky enough, we haven't got the 2 grams as well, Ewan.
Yeah, exactly. Just to distinguish between the two, hopefully as well. Seth Brown going to get a top 10 on that particular occasion. But that win for Luke Maxwell has actually jumped him into 2nd place in this championship now. Mike Bousson drops 14 points behind Luke Maxwell in the standings. That's going to be difficult for Bousson to overcome. Not impossible by any means. But Bousson does need to win if he wants to regain that 2nd place in the championship. Where it's 2nd place, of course, where he's been for most of the season.
Yeah, so here are your final standings. Maxwell taking the victory by 1.1 seconds in the end. Stellar philosophy there from Luke Maxwell. If it was purely maintaining his tyres, he'd done a great job. Simon Edwards in 2nd, led for pretty much most of the race, and now can only take 2nd place. Paul LeMay in 3rd, went about his business quietly, did an absolute stellar job. And I think the drive of the day, I think we've got to look at Paul Crabbew, and I think the fact that he dropped all the way down to the back of the field, was involved in 2 incidents, none his fault, mind you, and still battle back into 4th. That's got to be DOD right there.
Yeah, that's very impressive indeed. And I was very surprised, actually, to see Paul Crabbe up in 4th place when all the pit stops had shaken themselves out. He really went under the radar by pitting early and using his pace in clean air. But it really worked, as you can see. It was very congested, and you can see on the results here, it was very congested in the mid-pack and towards the bottom end of the standings. And Paul Crabbe was having to fight his way through all of that. Obviously had a lot easier of a time of things running out on his own in clean air. And so, yeah, a really good race from him to be able to do that and get up into 4th place. Obviously, he would have hoped for a bit more, but he did the best with the situation that presented itself to him.
Absolutely there as well. Then we go Jamie Bird in 5th, Darryl Taylor 6th, Mike Bousson 7th, Ben Underdown 8th, Paul Clark 9th, Seth Brown 10th, Richard Brown 11th, John McHutchison down in 12th, Damien G 13th, Phil Glover 14th, Rollison 15th, Jocelyn down in 16th, and I don't think Dave Dowson took to the start. But let's have a conversation with your winner this evening, Mr. Luke Maxwell. Mr. Maxwell, good evening to you, sir. How are you?
Yes, very happy. That was good. It was a tough one for sure, but I think my strategy helped a bit in the end.
Okay, so I'm going to have a guess. Now, me and Ewan were talking strategy. Okay, let me see if I can get this right. Stay with the front. Preserve your tyres. Go into the pits. Stay with Simon Edwards. have tyres at the end to overtake him.
Yeah, but I think the setup as well. I think I was running a bit more downforce, which was meant I couldn't get past on the straights very easily. But I knew that would help save the tyres in the long run. So yeah, pretty much that. Yeah, spot on. And then sit there. I messed up quali. I clipped the wall on my quick lap. I think I would have been second or third potentially. Not on pole, but. That was cracking race. It's a great track. Love it.
Yeah, to be fair, we were sat here in awe in the booth and just said how amazing that you did on the tyre preservation, because that was what we called, and said that, look, he must have preserved his tyres there, because you, over the last 2 laps, you looked blisteringly more quicker than Simon going through the dipper and down Forest Elbow, and then it looked like you had more at the end of the straight as well through the chase, and we didn't know if you went a lap early. Do you think you went a lap early, or could have made that move on the last lap?
Any chance I could get to get the move done. To be honest, I think the last few laps I was probably biding my time a little bit, but I knew it was getting near the end, and I kind of was worried as soon as I got past he'd struggle. But of course, you got that little bit of dirty air. If you can get with the low downforce, with the high downforce I had, I could come out the corners quite well, and then obviously that gives him a bit of dirty air behind. So. Made it challenging, especially on cooked tyres. So yeah, I struggled a bit when John and Simon were quite close together. I dropped off a bit there. I was still pushing, but they were lapping quick then on that fuel.
Yeah, see, now that was the point where we thought you were saving tyres. Hey, look, we made the best of a bad situation in the booth here, Luke. You know what I mean? Let's not, don't take it away. Just say yes, James. That was exactly what I was doing.
Absolutely, spot on. You guys are awesome.
But look, mate, absolutely stellar job. Now, would that push you into second place in the championship, going into Nords, the wonderful Nords Live circuit? How do you feel about Nords?
Love it. Yeah. Definitely was looking forward to the back half of this season more than the first half. Put it that way. I love Nords. Had a good race there with Simon last year. Finished second to him, but we'll see how we go this year. There'll be putting some hours in next week, I'm sure, and that's always fun at Nords anyway. So.
Well, for me, it's always fun, mate. I'm just lucky if I can get past the first lap without hitting a wall. You know what I mean? So, hey, for you guys, it's a walk in the park, isn't it? But look, dude, thanks so much for joining me in the booth. Anyone you want to give a shout out to before you leave this evening?
I am definitely going to give a shout out to Mr. Simon Edwards. He's an awesome driver, and his kind of pace and performance makes me push that much harder and maybe a better driver. So big shout out to Simon, and a great guy.
Okay, mate. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Cheers, fellas. Yeah. See ya.
Right, let's get Mr. Simon Edwards into the booth. Finished second in the end, led for the majority of the race. Simon, good evening. How are you?
Okay, bit mad with myself there.
All right. Tell us why you're mad.
I made 2 mistakes. I made 3 actually. At the start, I'd got a button set for my fuel. So I got on the grid with plenty of time, and I pressed the button, but I accidentally pressed it twice and pressed down. So I had loads and loads of fuel in, and I couldn't get it back into the cursor, back into the thing. So I missed the start. You probably saw I made a terrible start. So that was my first mistake, but then that sorted itself out at the end of the first lap. And then coming out of the pits, I thought, I might be able to get away from Luke here. So I thought I was pressing my delta time to bring my delta up so I could hot lap. And I pressed the VR reset instead. So I was inside the car like a little child, trying to peek over the top of it, going around the mountain. So I managed to get that sorted on the straight, but then at the end there, I made a mistake, thinking, I just got to get out of Forest Elbow good, and then I screwed up. So it was just one of them days.
Look, mate, I've got to be honest. If I got through Bathhurst with only 3 mistakes, and 2 of them, but one of them was actually on track, and 2 of them was technical, I'd be happy with that. You know what I mean? But did you have the tyres at the end? We were discussing that in the booth, whether or not you'd have quite the tyres at the end. Luke seems to come on a lot stronger that last third of the race. Did you have that grip there at the end to try and keep up with him?
I didn't have racing grip, but if I'd had no pressure, I think I would have matched his pace. But just my incompetence was making it worse. But I was having to sort of save the rear right. So I was going over the mountain carefully the whole race. So I wasn't optimizing that very much. So I was probably giving away a tenth or two there. But my tyres were going at the end, but they weren't gone. Although I nearly spun it trying to get into the chase quicker than Luke to try and get him into the last corner, but and I nearly spun it. But apart from that, that was my only big mistake. Apart from screwing Forest Elbow, I didn't screw it that I was going to crash it. I just screwed it at the exit.
Yeah, of course, as always. Now we think, according to Mr. Ewan's O'Leary's mathematics, and he spent all week crunching numbers with his own little spreadsheet here, Simon, we think you are uncatchable in the championship.
Are you sure? Because Luke has got 3 races he didn't turn up at.
Now, let's bring Ewan in here on this one. Ewan, what do we reckon?
Well, I've only got Luke Maxwell as having not turned up to 2. But
well, that's not so bad if that's happened.
So you are right in mentioning that, because that does mean that Maxwell just catch everybody up quite a lot as a result. But I still think you're uncatchable, and especially after this result now, even though you didn't quite win.
Yeah, I thought if I won it, I'd be very close to. I didn't do an exact count, but I thought I'd be very close to uncatchable if I'd won it. So if second gives me near that or that, then even better. Yeah.
Well, there you go. I'll tell you what we do. Let's wait. I'll tell you what, the easiest thing is from all of us is let's wait to see how the scores come out going into the last race, and we'll see how we work out. Because as I say, Ewan has been crunching all week, Simon, with his spreadsheet as well, trying to make sure we get this on the right money going into the last race here at Nords. Thank you again, as always, for joining me in the booth. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to before you leave the booth this evening?
I'm going to give a shout out for my mum. She's still not well, but she's getting there now. So I'm going to see her at the weekend. So I'll shout out to my mum.
Well, hope you get better. Is it Mrs. Edwards?
It is. Yeah.
Mrs. Edwards, from all of us here at JPB in the booth, much love to you. Simon, thank you again for joining me, and look forward to seeing you at Nords.
Yeah, and I love Nords.
Absolutely. So does Luke, so it should be a good battle.
Yeah.
Right. Now, the third last person I want to have a chat to is the man that was involved in an incident. He dropped all the way down to the back of the field. Then involved in another incident, none of them, mind you, his own fault. Battles back into 4th place, wins my driver of the day, because I think that's absolutely stellar, is the one and only Mr. Paul Crabb. Good evening, Paul. How are you, buddy?
Evening, James. I'm fine. I'm despite all my drama, I've had a great time. It's been a good race. Yeah.
I love how you say, despite all my drama. 2 incidents that weren't your fault.
Yeah, I mean, it was a shame that John just touched the back, and I didn't even pick up any damage from it, but it was enough to unsettle me into the corner. So, and Damien G. I wasn't actually intending to overtake him, but he stayed wide and slowed up, and I thought I had no choice but to go. But then he just clipped the grass on the outside with his right tires, and that was completely unfortunate. So I kind of the incident with Damien, I kind of forced that one myself. So I don't feel too aggrieved about that. I don't feel too aggrieved about John either, but I think Mike Bousson must have put him up to it.
No, I think so as well. Well, the good side is Damien has come out and apologised. You know what I mean? He said, I saw you on the inside, trying to give you space, but ended up. So, clipping the grass.
Well, he did, but it was just a racing incident at the end of the day. He just, yeah.
I think so as well. Now, first rule of racing is don't take out your teammate. Now, John did a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, but we're not teammates in here, are we? This is a different league. It's every man for himself.
We won't tell anybody that. Don't tell John that, mate. We want to give him as much grief as we can. He's normally the one giving everybody else grief. But look, at the end of the day, mate, you've had a cracking race. To come back to get to 4th, in awe, buddy. Absolutely in awe.
Yeah, well, I like this place. I've done a ton of laps around it in endurance races, and I used to love it in the SR8. For some reason, this car here is great for me. It goes really well. So, yeah.
Well, absolutely stellar job there, buddy. On to Nords we go. How do you feel about Nords?
Oh, I love Nord. It's probably one of my favourite tracks. Road Atlanta, North Live are probably my two favourite tracks.
Right.
And this one's right up there as well. So,
Well,
yeah.
big things then, Paul. I'm expecting to turn around and say you'll win out Mr. Paul Crabb at Nords. Don't let me down. You know what I mean? Come on, you've got to give me something this season. Don't do that. Don't do that. Go in full confidence, Paul. Full confidence. But look, buddy.
I'm a bit random with my results, though.
Well, look, overall, you've done a stellar job here tonight, and that's all that matters. Anyone you want to give a shout out to before you leave the booth this evening?
Oh, not really. I just came in to have a quick chat. I think Darryl Taylor, I think, again, for picking up the baton and running with the series and making it all happen. And we're looking forward to next season.
Yeah, absolutely stellar job there as well. So thank you, Paul, for joining me in the booth, buddy.
Okay, cheers.
Take care.
Bye.
Very relaxed Paul Crabb there. I kind of would have been a little bit more excited, Ewan, wouldn't you, if I just made it all the way back through to 4th place?
Well, maybe. Well, I was a little bit surprised that he was so kind of, not really bothered about the incident that took him all the way to the back of the field either, really. Didn't seem too unhappy about the fact that it even happened. Just seemed to have had a good time. And I guess that's all you can ask for. But yeah, very, very good race once again. And everybody seems very pleased with that one, really. Bathhurst is always a great circuit, so I can't blame them.
No, absolutely not there as well. And I think they've done an absolutely stellar job this evening. I've got to be honest, and I'm looking forward to Nords. I'm sure we'll have Ewan in the background this week crunching numbers as we bring you the story and the scores on the doors before we go into Nords. Boom. Do you like that, Ewan? That was good, wasn't it?
Yes, I enjoyed that.
Right, guys, that is it. Wrapping up this week's broadcast as always. I've been James Parfitt. Ewan O'Leary has joined me in the booth this evening. And once again, guys, as always, you all take care. Have a great week. And you never know, we might see you on the track sometime. Good night.